What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak about a a topic that was being discussed on what is it? Jason Whitlock's show. I forgot what he called his podcast, but they was discussing like college athletes and how they think that college athletes are ruining college sports, basketball and football, right? And I had this discussion on my live on Sunday. And my point is I'm pushing back on how kids are ruining sports because the kids, in my opinion, are a reflection of the adults. You know, eh, for years, these colleges have been making money with these kids, basketball and football, and saying, okay, we making the money, but we not giving you anything. And now, as soon as the kids are really asking for money and trying, making money and getting money now it's an issue. Now the kids are entitled. You got they complaining about the kids' attitudes and all this other stuff. When kids have always been entitled, but if you feel entitled and you're broke and I'm making money off of you, then I can put up with that. But now that you're making money, they seem to be more. They have an issue with these kids being entitled. What these kids blowing their money. For instance, if you think about now, why are they worried about basketball players making money and football players at these schools making money when you have kids who play golf? You have other sports. You have kids that play tennis, kids who play softball, and nobody's thinking about, well, a golf player can't turn pro until they turn a certain age, or a tennis player can't turn pro, or we don't want to play tennis player. They always want to do this with basketball and football, like, and they try to make it seem like, oh, we're looking out for these athletes. We're looking out for the basketball players and the football players. We want to turn them into men, but you don't care about turning the other sports players into adults because you're not making money off of those. And that's what it boils down to. It boils down to money. And what it is they're trying to shape the narrative. They're trying to hide that fact that they making money off of these kids. They used to making money off of these kids. And now that they're making money, all of a sudden the kids are, you know, what are they? They just entitled, they selfish, they arrogant. Anything that you could put out there about the kids in order to justify why they shouldn't have this money or why we need to have more structure and all this other stuff. So now they was talking about it. Jason Whitlock and Coach JB, they had an interesting discussion. And I think this point of view was not covered. It was not even brought up. Like I said, I think the adults should accept responsibilities. If you have a company and the company fail, you can't blame the employees. You got to blame the leadership, because if you allow employees to come into your company and do what they want to do, bring the product or bring the service down, then that is management and owners. That's their fault. They set the standard. They set the bar, just like parents, right? Parents in a household, you teach your kids manners, you teach your kids respect. One of the first things you teach your kids, like you teach them how to share. So when they go to school, that they know that, like everything is not theirs. They have to share crayons or school supplies with other kids. You teach them that. Kids don't naturally know these things. And so the same thing with college kids and young adults. Certain things you teach them respect, you teach them loyalty, you teach them how to persevere, all that stuff. Like these skills are not skills that people are born with. So, but you can criticize these kids and say, well, you don't have no respect because nobody took the time to teach these kids that. So let me play some audio from Jason Whitlock and Coach JB, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna push back on what they're saying.
Yes, you're right. I just don't
Oregon would be
know.
another one of those schools that probably can afford to pay. Let me play you this clip of Rick Pitino, where he's actually saying, "Hey, blame the parents, not AAU, for the decline in basketball, the quality of play in basketball? Play the clip.
Is there, when Kerr bangs on AAU basketball, I mean, just look at your roster. It's full of European and global players. How is the domestic product to you right now?
Well, the easiest thing to do is blame the AAU system. And I'm not one of those people that do that. I would rather blame parents than I would AAU. I think parents today are way too involved in their children's careers as far as growing up. The parents need to just sit in the stands, enjoy the game, and let the kids develop a love for the game. 20 years ago, I never dealt.
All right. Now, as a responsible parent, like if you feel that Rick Pitino is the only guy who can turn your kid, or any college coach can turn your kid into a responsible adult, if you believe that, then I just think you crazy. Now, I do remember when I was a kid, we played basketball at at these local recreation centers, and we went to the park and we played football and stuff like that. A lot of times wasn't no parents there, right? Now, once it got to the point where it wasn't a whole lot of parents at these games, it was just it'd be crowded, but it'd be a bunch of kids and coaches, right? And so once you got to a point in sports where people said, well, if you get you could develop your kid, and that'll give them a better shot at being an athlete, getting college scholarships, and maybe going off to the professional level. Then you see parents, and it's sad, then you see parents taking a more active role in their kids' lives, like that next generation. But when I was a kid, we hardly ever seen parents at basketball games, school games, and all that. It was just a bunch of kids. Now you see parents, they want to hire trainers, they want to hire nutritionists and all this stuff because they're investing in their kids. When I think parents back in the day, parents should have always in that way been investing in their kids. I remember hearing a story about Kevin Garnett. When he was playing high school basketball, his mother didn't even know he was as good as he was. And, people around town, it got back to her eventually how good he was, but she didn't know. She didn't even want him to play sports. She didn't know how good Kevin Garnett was until it got back to her. And, people around town was talking about it. And a lot that happened a lot. That even happened to me. Like when I was young and I played basketball, my mother never went to any of my games she never went to any of them. But then, people around the neighborhood had told her that, I was a really good athlete and all this stuff, but she never went to the games, and so, but that's just how it was. Now, for Rick Pitino, I think if a parent take interest in their kid's career, you better off than if a coach. You got to have both. You want to have good coaching, but you want to have that parent to oversee that, because this dude, Rick Pitino, is somebody who just, if your kid make it cool, if he could use your kid and get to where he's trying to get to, that's what it boils down to. Why would somebody leave their kid at home and then go somewhere else and and groom and babysit somebody else's kids for nothing, just because I want to see these kids turn into respectful adults? It don't make any sense. He have kids at home. All of these coaches, they have families and they have kids. They're going to go for free so they can turn a whole bunch of inner city kids into responsible adults. And, it don't work like that. And I hope people don't believe that. So, and so he's saying that just sit back and get out the way. I do think sometimes that some parents are over, and I saw it when my daughter would play high school basketball. I thought some parents were a little bit too, they just was a little overbearing and they was a little bit too involved, right? But it comes with the territory. You can be too involved as a parent and you can hurt your kid's career. As a coach, I wouldn't argue. I'm gonna run my team the way I want to run my team. I'm not going to disrespect your kid, and I'm going to expect your kid to, to do what I asked the kid to do. Now, if you have a problem with that, if you want to run my team, I wouldn't allow that. I'd be like, well, maybe you could do that somewhere else. That's just as simple as that is. And a lot of those kids, and I think reasonable parents are the ones who you're gonna, So you can't blame it on the parents, though. I would prefer for parents to be involved because some of these coaches, man, they just use your kids up and send them right back to the neighborhood once they finish with them. And then, they can always use that cliche line where my job is to turn your kid into a responsible man, a grown adult. That's BS.
With parents, I'm very lucky. I've got parents that are disciplinarians. They get after their kids, but the ones that aren't hurt much more than AAU. They want to, okay, let's go to a different school next year because you can make 300,000 more.
Now coaches, that's Rick Pitino still. Coaches will, if they get a better offer, coaches will drop a team and drop the kids. They recruit teams and kids and don't even get to coach them sometime. But nobody complains about that. It's different when the coaches do it. So like I said, the kids are just a reflection of the adults.
Let's grind it out where you're at and play for Tom Izzo and play for this person and play for this guy because he's going to make you a terrific basketball player with discipline and character.
What do you think of Pitino's take?
1,000% agree. I've been saying that for a long, long time. It's not the kid's fault. You already mentioned it earlier. I was listening to you. You're not going to blame Chambliss for coming back if they allow him, right? You're not going to blame him for getting the money. You and I aren't going to turn it down. I'm not blaming them. It's the parent. It's the adult in the room. And we have an old adage: you coach it or you allow it. We've allowed it so beyond ridiculous levels now. We've allowed it over and over.
And like Coach JB said, you either coach it or you allow it. I personally wouldn't allow a parent to run, my basketball team or my sports team. I just wouldn't do it. Like I said, your kid can go play somewhere else. Just like I wouldn't allow a kid to run and have, run my program, no matter how good that kid is. So, I just wouldn't do it.
Over and over. And the craziest part that Pitino didn't touch on that he probably understands and fully grasps, we're the babysitters more than the parent is now. We're doing the things the parent won't even do. We have them 15 hours a day in football. The parent don't have them at all. Didn't really want them anyway. Would love to get away from them and send them off to our school every day, even in high schools in the inner city, especially in the inner city in LA, where I've coached forever.
Yeah, okay. And see, so Coach JB said the inner city, right? And just like I said, you can't go out in the suburbs and take somebody's kid for 15 hours a day and they expect not their parents not to be involved in this situation or monitoring the situation. You have what's the kid, the Manning kid, Arch Manning, and I forgot I think his father's name is Cooper. Then his grandfather is Archie Manning. And you know who his two uncles are, Eli Manning and Peyton Manning, right? They probably, they probably not in these people's ear, but that as a coach, with he coming from that type of lineage and that type of background, that coach is feeling like, I can't, certain things that I may be able to, you're going to expect a certain amount of involvement in Arch Manning's career. Whereas though, if you get a kid from the inner city, you be like, oh yeah, well, I got free reign on this kid, which is not cool. People going to make mistakes. Parent, if your kid can't play a sport and your kid is not good at something, then these people not going to care like what kind of parent you are. Good luck to you. But like I said, because they can make some money off of you, because they can, they can benefit from having you on their team, then, now all of a sudden they want to turn you into a respectful adult and all this other stuff, man. When, like I said, if you couldn't play sports, then, it'd be like, good luck to you. I wish you the best. So that's all I got on it. I just think that you can't blame the kids for how college basketball is, how college football is. They just a reflection, like I say, of the adults in the room. These schools have they made billions and maybe even trillions of dollars over the years without paying these kids, and they still making money. So it is what it is, That's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to leave a comment. And with that being said, man, I'm going to check you all out in the next video. Peace.